Daf Kufya Dalet Amud Beis, right at the top of the Amud. Zok the Gemara, Amar Rish Lakish. We learned in the Mishnah that we bring out the Yerogas twice. We bring out the lettuce before the meal, and then we bring it out during the meal. So we first bring it out for karpas, and then we bring it out for the mitzvah Chilas Mor. So Rish Lakish says, we can learn out from here that mitzvah strichs kavana. That to be yaitza mitzvah, you have to have intent. You have to have kavanah to be yaitza. If you don't have an intent for it to be yaitza the mitzvah, you're not yaitza. Why is that? Because we say first he's eating the more. He's eating more twice. He's eating the more for the karpas. They bring out the lettuce for the karpas, and they have to bring again. So why did they bring it twice? It must be that because since the first time they bring it out, it's not at the time to be yaitza the mitzvah of moror. It's not eaten together with the matzah. It's not al matzah morarim. So it's not the time for moror. So therefore, since he's eating it when it's not the normal time of moror, and he's making a bracha bar priyadama. So therefore, he's eating it in the manner of just eating a vegetable. So therefore, he doesn't have a specific kavana for the mitzvah more. So perhaps he's not machaven for the mitzvah more. Taisa says that dilma is lav dafka, means certainly he's not machaven for the mitzvah more. He's not eating it during the meal. He's not eating it with the matzah. He's eating it prior, so he doesn't have kavana for more. Therefore, the more has to be brought out again, and he needs to do it again and dip it and eat it for the mitzvah more with the intent of him becoming the mitzvah more. Because because if you say that you don't need kavana, why does he have to bring it out twice? Why do you need it twice? He was ready taival and he was ready yotza the first time when he ate it. The first time he should be yotza the mitzvah more as well. Where says mimai? Why do you say that? It's not lav davka. Maybe I'll tell you really mitzvahs don't need kavanah. Oh, the comment, and you said but you said, well, if that's the case, why bring it out a second time? He's already yaitza more. Why bring it out the second time? No, it's brought out a second time so that the children should see that there's something unusual over here. You already had the lettuce. You already had the more. Why are you bringing it again? So they'll ask the question. So it's so to stimulate the children. Maybe that's why you bring it, but maybe he really was yaitza the first time. The Gemara weiter later on we'll see how this works with the brachas, where do you make the bracha of achilas mar? But what's your raya over here? What's your raya that the reason we're bringing it a second time is because he was not yaitza the first time? Maybe we bring out a second time so the children will ask. Maybe you'll say im kain, if that's a purpose, if the purpose for the two vegetables is to arouse the children's curiosity. Well, if that's the case, lishminan shar yirakos, then let us teach us other vegetables. Say the case by other vegetables, meaning say that the first table karpas do a different vegetable, which is not for the more, and then have the lettuce for the more. And therefore don't do it out of order, do it the normal order, and have a different vegetable for the karpas, for the tibul rishon, that will arouse the children's curiosity, and have the more at the right time. So maybe that's the case if it's to arouse the curiosity. So why do it say a dafka where it's the same, where it's lettuce in both cases? Must be that you're not yaitza the first one. You're not yaitza with the first one because mitzvah strichas kavana, and therefore you have it the second time. Or it says, yes, mina shar yarakais. No, if it said shar yarakis havamina, I would have said that heicha deika shar yarakas would be in treiti buli. Where do you have to do treiti buli? That's what you have shar yarakas. Then you do the first tibul with a different vegetable, and you do more in the right time, in the normal time. Aval chazeres lechudoloi by treiti buli. But if it's only chazeres on its own, if you only have the chazeres, I would say perhaps that you don't do forgo the karpas, and only do the chazeres during the normal time, at the time of more. So Kamash Milan, that's why it has to teach you Tafilu Chazeres being a Trei Tibuli, that even if it's the same vegetable, then you still need Trei Tibuli, and therefore you have Trei Tibuli, and you do the first one with Chazeres as well, and even though it results in being the morer being out of order. So that will be Heker for the Tinoikis, even though the morer will be not in its normal order. Another kasha on Reish Lakish, we learned in the Baraisa, if any of the Yerokas that he's eating for the morer, if he ate it, and we're demai, so demai is produce that's purchased from an amar. So Rabban Geyser, we can't rely on the amar to be mafish the maisras. You have to be mafish the maisras. Nevertheless, if a person ate these vegetables without being mafish the maisras, he's yaitza. It's not considered mitzvah baba avera because theoretically he could eat these vegetables. This is not considered like when the Rabban were geyser, it was not an absolute isser. They weren't geyser like an absolute isser that has no exceptions. They weren't machmer on it for an ani, and therefore a person theoretically can make himself an ani by being mafkir as nechosim, and therefore he theoretically could eat it. So he's yaitza. So therefore achlan demai yatsa. And if he ate it without kavana, then he's yaitza. So you see clearly without kavana that you're yaitza. If he ate it in two stages, in different stages, he's also yaitza. Provided that he doesn't pause between the two intervals of eating more than the time it takes to eat a pras. A pras is half of the standard loaf of the Mishnah. A standard loaf is either the standard loaf is either 6 or 8 bayim, so it's therefore the time it takes to eat 3 or 4 bayim. The Rambam points out, even though it says over here the lashon is bein achil chaverta, which would imply between the eating of one half and the other half, what it really means is from the time of the beginning of the eating till the conclusion of the eating. So al kopanim, you see kasha on Reish Lakish. The Gemara answers Tanoi he. So machlok is Tanoi. The Sanya we learned in the Brayser of Yosi Omer, Afal Pisha Tivul B'Chazeres, even though he dipped at the Chazeres, so he ate the lettuce already, but mitzvah l'havi l'fanav Chazeres v'chareiso shnei tavshilin, still there's a mitzvah to bring again the moror and the chareiso shnei tavshilin. So you see that Rav Yosi holds that even though he ate the moror, he did it without kavana, he has to eat it again. So Reish Lakish would be like Rav Yosi. Still, who says that Rav Yosi is holds that mitzvah shrichas kavana mimai? Because maybe I'll tell you that Rav Yosi mitzvah ain't shrichas kavana. Maybe I'll tell you that he holds you don't need kavana. Behind the being a trei tibuli. Why does he say you need trei tibuli? That you have to bring it again? Maybe this is also again for the purpose that to stimulate the children, and they'll ask the question. Gemara says, no, in kain my mitzvah. Then it should say simply you bring out the chazeres. It shouldn't say it's a mitzvah. So thereby saying it's a mitzvah, it's mashi, we're not yaitza the mitzvah more. Now to be yaitza the mitzvah, you have to bring it again. So this shows you, like Reish Lakish, the mitzvah strichas kavod. Now we have to mention that you bring out the two Tavshilin, Zecher of the Korban Pesach and the Korban Chagi. Shnei Tavshilin, Omer Rav Huna, Silka Varuza. He says you bring up beets and rice. You can bring up beets and rice. Meaning that even though it's Zecher for the Korbanos, but it doesn't have to be Boser, it can even be beets and rice. And Rava, Ava Mahadra, Silka Varuza, he used Davke, those two meaning, Oil V'nafim Yipumid Rav Huna, because it came from the mouth of Rav Huna. Amar Ravashi, Shema Minad Rav Huna, Leichayesh Lahad Rav Yechon Ben Nuri. You can see from here that we're not Chayeshesh for Rav Yechon Ben Nuri, this Hanya Rav Yechon Ben Nuri Omer. He says, Iris Min Dogan, you can't have rice on Pesach because Iris is a Min Dogan, just like the grains, you have the shaila of grains can become chometz. He held that rice also can become chometz. Now, the principle is when it's only chometz, isser of chometz is on that which you eat. You can be yoitzer for the mitzvah of matzah. On that where there's a mitzvah of matzah, there's an isser of loisachal chometz. So therefore, if you hold that rice is a min dogan, is one of the grains, and you can be yaitz matzah, there's an isser of chametz. But if rice is not a min dogan, it's not one of the grains, you can't be yaitz of the mitzvah matzah, and there's no isser of chametz. But Yechon ben Nuri says, is min dogan, it is one of the grains, and therefore v'chayav al chayimutz kares, and therefore it's chametz. Then it could become chometz, and you would be chayiv kares like chometz. And similarly, a person could be yaitzes chayiv with this on Pesach. So, and therefore, by saying that they use rice, obviously they do not hold that way. But Tosfos brings down, Tosfos says that those who argue on Rav ben Nuri hold that no, that rice does not come lidei chimutz. It comes only lidei sirchon. It gets spoiled, but it doesn't become leavened. It doesn't become chometz. Chizki Omar, he says afilu dago beishala. 2 tavshilim can even be the fish, and the eggs that are on top of it. That can also be considered 2 tavshilim. Rav Yosef Omar Tzarech Shnei Minei Basar. He says no, that since it's zeich of the korban Pesach and korban Chagiga, it has to be more similar to them, and therefore it has to be meat. Echad zeich al Pesach, echad zeich al Chagiga. Ravina Omar, he says, afilu garma bishula. He says even a bone and the juice and the gravy that's on top of it, that's also considered 2 tavshilin, 2 dishes. The Rishonim discuss if you hold that you need 2 types of basar, one is zeich korban Pesach and one is zeich korban Chagiga. How far do we go with this? Do we say that it even has to be that similar to it that the one that's zeich korban Pesach has to be roasted? The Chagiga doesn't have to be roasted. It can be cooked. That's what Rabbeinu Hananel says. Tosfos says that both can be cooked. The minig nowadays is that both are roasted.